Everyone, welcome to WJZZ Cool TV on WJZZ station, global station, worldwide. I am Attorney Linda Bernard, and you're watching Chop It Up with Attorney Linda Bernard. I'm also, as you can see, a police commissioner in the city of Detroit. We have lots of interesting things to talk about today in terms of the city. My guest is en route, so we're going to start with me. These are my cards. You've probably seen them around town, and then most people also got a mailer this week. Please come to the polls on November 2nd, Tuesday, 3 days from now, and vote for me as your police commissioner. I'm the only lawyer on the board. I raise legal points. What's wrong? I'm on this camera. What?
Yeah.
This? You want me to look this way?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry. Let's do this again. We had a little problem with our camera person. I'm the only lawyer on the board. I appreciate your support and your vote on Tuesday. It's only going to take a minute. Unfortunately, the projections for the voter turnout for this race are very, very small. As you know, they say around 20-25%, which would be high, of the number of registered voters in Detroit. That's a problem. I don't think I've ever missed an election, and I urge you not to either. But in any event, you get a chance to vote for your mayor, you vote for your city council, and of course, you also vote for your police commissioner. This is my kicker card. I hope you've seen it. If you haven't, you're looking at it now. And if you're an absentee voter, you got a mailing about me. Please, please, please vote for me. Let me just give you one example of how having a lawyer on the board makes a difference. This past week, we had there were 3 policies presented to us. One on citizen complaints, which is very important to me because I want to hear about anything and everything that you think is an issue with Detroit police. Because if we address it, then we can keep it from getting worse. It's only problems that are not addressed that create the bigger problems like use of force, things like that. So if there's an issue with an officer, if you let us know, then we can address it. Because of the 2,700 officers that we have, probably 2,690 are great officers. But those 10 that may not be great officers, those are the ones that cause the problems. So I need you to let me know, let the Board of Police Commissioners know about any issues that you have with police conduct or police misconduct so that we can celebrate all of those that don't have conduct issues and those that do a great job protecting you. On the flip side of that, I'd like you to let me know when officers are doing a great job. You can call that office, the same number that you call for complaints, and I'm also going to ask this starting this week that they also accept praise for officers that you think did a good job. I would appreciate you letting us know both. Okay, back to this election. The reason that it's important that I'm on the board is this past week, as I said, we had 3 policies presented. One on citizens' complaints, one on bomb threats, and one on eyewitness identification. I'm a lawyer, as I said earlier, and I have a client right now who spent years in prison because of a eyewitness identification that was coached by an officer in a precinct in Detroit that is notorious for this kind of activity. I won't mention the precinct because there's new management there, there's a new command person there, and I think that she's addressing the issues. But the point is that eyewitness identification is used in virtually every criminal prosecution. I know that because I do criminal defense work. So I took the policy and the board was just prepared to just amend it with a few, and I'm like, oh no, I wasn't there when it was passed the first time. I need the whole policy. So what I'm doing is I sent it to Dean Birchtroff at Wayne State University Law School. He's a criminal law expert, and he has a whole bunch of lawyers that are really, really super smart that can also address this issue. From a constitutional perspective, is the lineup constitutional? Was the selection of the people correct? Was the witness coached? Did they sit there and say, Linda, doesn't that look like the guy that did XYZ to you, that stole your purse or assaulted you? And I'm like listening with my right ear, trying to examine with my eyes but I'm being coached into selecting a person that the police want off the street. That's what happened to my client. And the reason, and that's not just a supposition, ladies and gentlemen. It's really, really true because the person that identified him from the lineup now has actually recanted his testimony in writing in a sworn affidavit and is prepared to testify in court about what happened to him while he was viewing the lineup and how the police officer coached him to name my client. So, the point of the matter is that the whole board was prepared to approve this policy. I'm the only lawyer on the board. I said, can we put this off for 30 days? That same evening, I wrote a memo to the dean of the law school asking for his input because I'm very concerned about this and about this process. And I'm also sending it to the head of the criminal defense bar. In other words, because you don't have a chance to weigh in on it, at least I can try to get people who are learned in the law, criminal defense attorneys. I'm going to send it to John Royal and also to the dean of the law school to see what they think about this policy and how it should be revised. Once I get their input, then I can go back to the board and we can adopt a eyewitness policy that hopefully will keep innocent people out of jail and allow for an independent eyewitness identification by witnesses about crimes that have occurred to them. So that's why my being there makes a difference. And I'm serious about this. I'm very, even yesterday, I'm sorry, at the last meeting on Thursday, the chief's office reported that they had met with the prosecutor and everybody. I mean, one of the questions was about the backlog in the courts in terms of one of my board members is very, 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 very pro law enforcement. As am I, but I am for fair law enforcement, constitutional law enforcement, not just lock them everybody up and throw away the key. So anyway, he reported on the fact that the chief and the prosecutor and a bunch of people from law enforcement had met with the prosecutor about expediting the trials here in Detroit and in Wayne County because of COVID virus had pushed everything back. So there's this big meeting about it. And so they're talking about how soon they could get these trials done and all that. And I said, why wasn't the head of the defense bar there? Why wasn't the head of the ACLU there? I mean, there are two sides to every case. There's the fact that you are prosecuting me or that you have arrested me, but then I'm innocent until proven guilty. So you need both perspectives as you talk about trying to move these cases to trial because of the brouhaha that exists with respect to people being released without cash bail. The point being that you shouldn't be held in jail because you don't have money to bail out. So, I mean, unless you are a danger to society. If you haven't made that finding that the person is either a flight risk or a danger to society, then they should be released on bail. You can put an ankle monitor on or whatever you want to do like that, but they should not be in jail. So I'm just trying to tell you an example of a meeting that we just had less than 3 days ago where my advocacy, where my knowledge of the law, where my experience as a criminal defense attorney made a difference. And I want to make that same difference for this community and for all of us in the years to come as a police commissioner. So I ask you please to vote for me. This is my literature again. It says re-elect Linda D. Bernard. Re-elect attorney Linda D. Bernard to the Board of Police Commissioners. Now, having said all that, let's talk about the timely issues of the day. As you know, a couple of police officers were arrested by the federal government for taking bribes from towers. That's very unfortunate. The chief pointed out in his statement that this investigation started before he became chief, and that of course he is cooperating, as we should. But again, everyone knows everyone is innocent until proven guilty. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But it is being handled appropriately. And for your information, the chief is going to request the board to suspend the officers without pay pending this because they've been indicted and until further notice. So you don't have to worry about that. or call me about that. It's going to be addressed at the next board meeting, which will be Thursday, the 4th of November. Okay, back to Detroit. One of the hot issues that unfortunately my guest, former state representative Sherry Gay Donego, was going to address today is the issue of redistricting in Detroit and the impact that's going to have on the vote. Simply said, I know that she's very informed on this, certainly better informed than I am. But really, redistricting is required every 10 years after the census based on the population. The point of districting for elections is to say where people are, those people have to have a voice. If everybody moved from Michigan to Florida, then they get a whole bunch of new representatives because that's where the people are. And we would lose some. Many states, there's this ebb and flow with respect to population in the United States. For example, Las Vegas, which has just boomed, as we both know, has more than, only had a few 100,000 people. Now they got more than 2 million. They got a lot more representatives because of their population base. So every state in the union, once we get the United States Census data, redistricts their congressional districts for purposes of federal elections, for Congress, president, etc. Okay, well, Detroit lost a bunch of people. In order to have your own district, you need, I think it's at least 720,000 people in that area for there to be one congressperson for every 720,000 people. Well, we have less than that. We've got like 600 and maybe 80, 90. I had it, and I don't have it before me right now. That's what the last census said. So that means that the 13th and 14th congressional districts, which sort of divide Detroit now, in part, are going to have to, those lines are going to have to be redrawn. Well, to Governor Whitmer's credit, she created one of the most transparent redistricting commissions in the history of the state. Usually they're just appointees and they're just served because the governor said so. But in this instance, she's been completely transparent with respect to this process, and actually had like an election, if you will, not an election. It was an open forum though, whereby persons who wanted to be on the redistricting commission could apply and be on the commission. So they're on the commission now. One of the things that Representative Sherry Gay Donego said to me last week, and we were going to talk about it today, but her job kept her from being able to come today, was the fact that, in her opinion, the people that are on the commission, who I don't know, are not equipped to address the issue of redistricting. I got the feeling that she felt that if they were legislators who knew more about state government, municipal government, it would be a better commission. I don't know. All I know is that it is required federally that everyone that this commission be appointed, and that before the next federal election in 2024, it's 224, it's 220, right? Anyway, that the lines be redrawn. So all of us who in Detroit, in the Detroit area, who claim the 13th or the 14th, may or may not be able to do that in the future. I've heard people state that one of the things that they were concerned about was that because they wanted to make sure that black people were not disenfranchised. And I absolutely agree with that. But that's a possibility depending on how the lines are redrawn. For example, if Southfield was put in a different district and half of Detroit was put in a different district and the east side was put in a different district, where you're combining them each to get to 725,000 people, it's a strong possibility that we could lose our current representatives in those areas. And those representatives are, as you know, Representative Lawrence and also Representative Tlaib. So Brenda Lawrence and Rashida Tlaib um, have a great interest in this issue because Congress is elected every 2 years. When you vote for me this week for police commissioner, I'm on the board for 4 years, like city council members and like the mayor. So we're not constantly running for reelection. I get a chance, as they said in that old TV sitcom, I get a chance to sit a while and really be able to impact things and make a difference. So that's what's important. So I don't know what's going to happen with the redistricting. I urge you to become informed about it. I urge you to understand it. I do know. Come on in. Oh, one of our electors is here. It's great to see you.
Great to be
How
here.
are you?
I am doing fantastic.
Mr. Curtis Smith. You can move down here if you like, so we can be on the same camera here, tight together.
All right.
Oh, don't! You've got on that shirt that says Michigan. Boo!
Go
But
blue.
anyway, no, go green, go green, go green. The Michigan State was the first school to have African American football players in the state of Michigan. They did that for like 15 years before Michigan got a black player. So I look at that as racist. And of course, you know how I feel anyway about Harbaugh, although he's winning right now. Anyway, but that's the truth. That's the truth. Both Ohio State had black athletes because they had Jesse Owens during the Second World War, and Jesse Owens won the Olympics and embarrassed Hitler to the point that he was totally through with Negroes, as you know, because we won, because he won the gold medal at the Olympics. And Michigan State, after that, after Ohio State had hired black athletes, then Michigan State did it. Michigan said, nope, we're not doing it. So that's one of the reasons that I'm against Michigan, and the fact that less than 4% of their student population is black. So that's the other reason. But anyway, back to the point.
Okay.
How are you here? You're here today.
I am.
And we've got a football game today between Michigan and Michigan State.
We do.
And you already know what he's doing, and you already know what I'm doing. So, having said that, look at this way. And so, let's talk. You told me the other day that you were going to be an election poll worker. Tell me what that means. So let everybody. We were just talking about redistricting. I don't know if you have an opinion on that. If you do, you can express it right now, since that's what I was just talking about. But I really want to talk about. Then we'll come back to the issue of elections.
So redistricting, to my knowledge, is done at the every 10-year census, and is designed to align population shifts with representation in Congress. I believe Michigan is losing one congressional seat based on the population moving to the southeast and maybe southwest. I think.
You talking about Detroit?
Are you talking about Detroit redistricting, or are you talking about the state?
Both the state and the city. Go
Okay,
ahead.
I'm not familiar with the city's redistricting, but for the state, I think Michigan is in a good position because they have this neutral redistricting commission, I believe,
Correct.
and it's designed to take the politics out of the redistricting, which is often done to strengthen the political parties who is in power in the legislature to maximize their number of easy seats held by their party. So I don't know if Michigan is the first in the country to do this. However, I'm excited about the results of what they're doing. I do get the emails. They're transparent.
They're totally transparent.
They hold lots of public hearings. And I think they are looking for equitable redistricting to serve the citizens the best.
Correct. Not gerrymandering to serve political parties, which is what you were speaking about.
Sure.
There has been discussion about the fact that Detroit will lose a congressional seat. Specifically, that, as I've said earlier in this broadcast, that Rashida Tlaib and Brenda Lawrence, we will lose one of them in the redistricting plan. And before you comment on that, let me remind our viewers that you're watching Chop It Up with Attorney Linda Bernard. My guest is Mr. Curtis Smith, part of the election dynamic team here in the city of Detroit. You're watching us on Wjzz Cool TV, the coolest station in the nation. Of course, you can fire up Facebook or YouTube. I guess it's not going to be Facebook anymore after next week. They're changing their name because they have such a bad that reputation. We'll have to talk about that separately. But anyway, you can watch us on YouTube and whatever the new name is for Facebook, etc. So, all right, let's go back to this issue. What I had heard, I don't believe this is confirmed, was that in order to preserve the black vote, they were going to take all of Detroit and all of Southfield and use that as one district. But that would mean that we would lose one of our congressional representatives, either Rashida Tlaib or Brenda Lawrence. Now that's very unpopular. Then when Sherry was here last week, Sherry Gay Donego, who's a former state rep, she's advocating that Detroit sort of be split in the middle, similar to what it is now, and combined with other districts that east side, and like we are now, other districts on the west side, and that Southfield be, I guess, separate from us, although Southfield is part of us now, as you know, for the 14th. So, what do you think about this? I mean, how do you think race should play into this dynamic?
I think this is a complicated situation. I don't know what the formula they use to carve up the state.
725,000 voters in each district.
In each district?
It's got to be minimum. That's the minimum.
Is the minimum?
Mm-hmm. That's why we lost a seat. Right.
That's why we lost a seat. And when you say we, is it the state of Michigan?
No, I'm talking about Detroit now.
Okay. So I think it's important that the commission look at how their redistricting is going to impact folks. Mm-hmm. I think so. The black vote in Southeast Michigan is pretty spread out. If you look at some of the black migration patterns, they're moving to east out of Detroit. They're in Oakland County.
And Warren.
And
Warren,
so in Macomb County.
In Macomb County,
and
right.
So perhaps the black vote may be spread out throughout the region. And so I haven't seen any of the recent census data to see how demographic patterns have shifted in the last 10 years. Certainly Detroit's population has decreased. I think we lost people. And I think that our city population, I don't know how it's been impacted in terms of diversity.
Well, there's been an increase of diversity because there are many more white people in Detroit now than there were previously that have become homeowners in the city. That's why it used to be like 90-some% black. Now it's down to like 80.
Okay, so
So there more white people are moving into Detroit, and I think that's because of a number of reasons. I mean, you know, the city has had a resurgence in many areas. I mean, I always say that Mike Duggan is an excellent CEO. He just is. He knows how to run things. He gets things done. But in that process, I think millennials and young white people have decided they want city life. They don't want the suburban life like they once did or thought was the only way they could live. And the other reason I think there's a resurgence, quite frankly, Curtis, and you're an urban planner. Ladies and gentlemen, this man has a master's degree in urban planner. He's renowned for his skills and ability in this area, and he's certainly a person that you can trust on this issue. But I think the other reason is that the gems of the city of the gems of southeastern Michigan are in the city of Detroit. The Art Institute, the Opera House, the orchestra, of course, and our most valuable gem, of course, is the riverfront. I mean, why choose to be landlocked when you can live on a river and look into a foreign country? To me, that is why everything from West Grand Boulevard to Jefferson Avenue is what I call the golden circle. And it's where real estate values have gone up in some instances to more than $1 million, as you know, just for penthouses and condos and things like that. So the golden circle, to me, because all of the gems of the city, the library, Wayne State University, just things that reflect culture and class from yesteryear as well as now, I think are all there. So that, to me, is why people are also moving back in. Why more, if you will, senior citizens and others are moving in. The ballparks are there. The arenas are there. The hockey rink, the baseball, football. I mean, you know, everything is right there. So to me, that makes sense. And that's why they've created the Q line. so that it goes from the boulevard to the foot of Jefferson, because it brings those people don't have to move their cars. They can just get on the queue line, get dropped off to go to the football game, the Lions game, or the Bay Tigers game, or the opera, or the symphony. What do you think?
Okay, Linda. So I think a couple of things. You said quite a lot. Take it into what are the reasons why people move to a community? And so I think there are several reasons, and actually an idea for a topic of a future show is to bring in folks who have moved to Detroit recently, and to get firsthand information on what were the factors that motivated them to move to Detroit.
Okay.
So that would be interesting. I think people move to a city for a number of reasons. The ones you have mentioned are some of them. Other ones could be that the housing in Detroit for a long time was a lot less than comparable housing. And what I mean by comparable, design elements, characteristics, than in other communities. So
I agree.
folks have a fondness of unique architecture
And quality architecture, not drywall, but plaster walls.
and quality and and housing that was built at a period of time when the construction methodology was a whole lot different than it is now. You can find more of those houses in Detroit. The other reason why people may move to the city is, again, because of the way cities in Detroit is laid out, with a lot of activity in the front. People have front porches, they have sidewalks. There's a higher density, which allows for folks to know each other a little better. Traffic patterns within the city of Detroit are a lot easier to navigate than sometimes your traffic patterns in suburban communities, where they want. The suburban communities are often built in cul-de-sacs, where if you want to go around the block, there is no way to go around the block going through a cul-de-sac. Whereas Detroit is built on a grid system. So if Livernois is backed up, you can take a side street, go past the backup, and get to your destination. If Southfield Road is backed up, you just have to sit. Because if you make a right turn into a neighborhood, who knows where that road will
Correct.
take you.
You are always lost.
And so that was designed on purpose to prevent traffic through neighborhoods. So people move to Detroit for different reasons. I think it'd be interesting to ask. It'd be interesting to ask the families who came why. Detroit offers some diversity. It offers an opportunity to be a part of a resurgence of a community. There's both racial diversity, but there's also age diversity. I live in the University District, and we have the whole gauntlet from families who have been there for 50, 60 years to folks who have moved in 6 months.
Correct.
And there's an energy, I believe, that happens in our community that people find attractive and want to be a part of.
Well, they also have great homes, but there are many areas in Detroit that have, from Palmer Woods to Courtney, even downtown to off Jefferson there. We have great housing stock. At one time, we had more African American homeowners than any city in the country.
That's true.
And that was largely because of the VA Act, and so many people were in the military, they were able to come back and get mortgages and do stuff. Because some of that and everything has changed. But back to this issue of voting. I spoke earlier about what is projected as the voter turnout on Tuesday in this city, and I don't think there's any other city that's doing elections that's in southeastern Michigan on that day. I'm not aware of it.
There are, I saw in the paper, Michigan, I believe, has 83 counties.
Correct. We have 83 counties.
I think there's elections in maybe 2/3 of them.
Oh, really? But
yeah.
But local elections? Well, obviously local if it's a county election.
Well, in terms
but we're not electing the county exec. We're only elected. This is a municipal election.
Well, what I mean by in counties, I'm just
some kind of election.
Yeah, they are having some either it's local
Mm-hmm.
or I believe ours is all local, isn't it?
All of ours are local. Yeah, other than a couple of proposals for the city of Detroit. This is all city of Detroit. There are no national candidates.
Other cities have proposals for millages. I was driving. I do some work in Belding, Michigan, which is about 40 minutes from Grand Rapids, and I saw library proposals and police proposals to fund police programs. So there are elections going on, and I see the signs up.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen them in other communities too. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, again, you're watching Chop It Up with Attorney Linda Bernard. That's me, also Police Commissioner Linda Bernard. Vote for me, please, on November 2nd. But beyond that and everything, you're watching us on Wjzz Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. So it's very important that I say world, although I like station and nation. My producer has a big problem with that. And so he wants it known that this broadcast can be seen in Nigeria or Turkey, anywhere in the world. So that's cool. Back to this issue of what's going to happen on Tuesday here in Detroit.
You had also mentioned about turnout.
Yes.
And generally, turnout is real low in non-presidential elections.
Yeah, and there's no governor. There's nothing on. They're
so
right. There's no statewide office that
higher offices. We'll see what the folks. We'll see what our fellow citizens do. Nonetheless, there are some important measures on this ballot from our city officials, council people, city clerk, police commissioner.
Thank you.
And three proposals.
Let's talk about those proposals a minute because they're very unique to Detroit, ladies and gentlemen. I think you'll find if you're not from Detroit, you haven't seen our ballot and you haven't seen those proposals. But let's talk about them a little bit. Go ahead. Why don't you inform our audience about these three proposals?
And I'm gonna need some help. And I can say I don't know the letters of them.
I know R is for reparations.
R is for reparations in the sense of one is for research to
right.
do the analysis to determine how
Detroiters
it should be calculated.
Correct.
Then there's another one about reparations too.
Right.
Which maybe is an advisory to the mayor.
No. Another one will allow the one of the ones that I think is super critical. It allows the people to vote through referendum. Not right now. All of our laws are created by city council. They actually generally start like with the mayor's office or with the city council person. They're drafted by the research staff for city council and by the corporation counsel's office of the city, and then they go to city council for a vote. We don't vote on laws. We don't vote on them at all. We have a opportunity for public comment, like if you want to make some comments about the recent towing ordinance or any other ordinance. I mean, you can come in for 2 minutes and make some comments. You can submit written comments to council people, staff persons, but they're not bound to listen or even make any adjustments or amendments. This proposal, I think it's proposal S, will allow the people to essentially make laws through referendum. I can say, I propose that there be no special assessment districts in the city of Detroit that put armed people on the street to patrol a selective neighborhoods. I think that's whatever it is, whatever I might think about that. For example, the people can put that on the ballot. And once that's put on the ballot, and if it's approved at a public vote, then that's the law. In other words, the people get the opportunity to make laws and create and if you will, further. And so then city council can't do that. For example, we the people would be making the laws.
I understand that from what I remember reading. I also thought that there was a caveat in this referendum proposal that the proposal could not commit the city to anything financial.
It can't commit it to anything. You can pull it up, I'm sure, because you're really good at that. Commit the city to and I'm not sure. I don't think they can reverse. I don't know if they can. I think they can reverse things, but they can't commit you to something that's financial.
Right. So
to spend more money. The question being whether they can stop you from spending money on something. For example, I mean, there's two sides to that, as you know.
Exactly.
So we'll have to see here, and you're going to pull up those referendums. But these referendums are unique, and in order to get a referendum on the ballot, you have to get 100,000 signatures, I believe, in Detroit or more?
I didn't read the
Number of
the
signatures.
technicals part
Yeah.
of it.
But it's on there. And so the citizens of Detroit get a chance to weigh in on these proposals. We've done a lot of proposal work in the city of Detroit recently, as you know. We voted for Proposal N, which was Proposal N for neighborhoods, which allowed the city to clear up blighted areas and spend money and everything and assess. I don't know if there was a financial part of that for taxpayers, but in any event, I know that it allowed the city to act aggressively with respect to blight. And then we had Proposal P, which was they called the People's Proposal, which was a proposal to modify the city charter to give broad sweeping powers to a number of different commissions in different areas that would have increased, in part, would have increased the representation of people, but clearly would have increased the bureaucracy as well.
Yes.
And that was voted down by Detroiters. Proposal P for Proposal N, pardon me, for neighborhoods was voted up. Proposal P for the People's Charter was voted down. So let's talk about these three proposals now. People are very confused about them, incidentally.
So Proposal S, I can read to you the ballot Proposal S. And it goes, do you agree to amend a provision of the City of Detroit Charter to amend Section 12-101 of the Charter that restricts power from the voters to enact city ordinances for the appropriation of money? The amended section shall read, the voters of the city reserve the power to enact city ordinances, called the initiative, and power to nullify ordinances enacted by the city, called the referendum. However, these powers do not extend to the budget, and the referendum power does not extend to any emergency ordinance. The initiative and the referendum may be invoked by a petition as provided in this chapter.
Okay, so what's your position on that?
I already voted, and
Okay.
so I believe, I think I voted yes.
I did
To
too.
let the citizens be able
I did
to
too.
express their concerns
Right.
and salient issues. I think that the checks and balances is where it hits the budget, because we wouldn't want a popular issue to get voted for, but then not having thought out the cost of it long term.
Or even proposals that you've heard nationally, like defund the police. You know, at one point that might have been something that people would have been, because voting emotionally, might have wanted to do.
Right.
But we wouldn't want that to occur. And it is, as you just said, you can't nullify things regarding the budget. The budget is set by city council
Sure.
with the approval of the mayor. When the 9 members of the city council vote on that budget, it's the budget, and that's how we proceed. And that's necessary for government, ladies and gentlemen, because they can't be yo-yoed in the middle of a project, in the middle of a construction project, in the middle of a planning project, in the middle of anything. You can't just snatch the money away and say, oh, well, we don't think this is important anymore. That doesn't work like that. I mean,
And I think also there are bond issues that are long
oh
term.
God, our bond rating would tank.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to float any bonds or borrow money against the good faith and credit. I mean, faith. Yeah, I've forgotten the first word. Credit against the city of Detroit, because bonds are issued where the city has pledged the full faith and credit of the city of Detroit and its population to repay that bond issue.
And usually for a period that extends in the future past the administration or
absolutely.
the council body that
It
had
goes for
approved
years, for years and years.
Folks
Yeah.
want to know that when the city promises something going out many years in the future, that there's not a worry that there will be those promises will be changed.
Okay. Now the other proposal. Let's go through these proposals so our audience will have an opportunity to. And if you're not in Detroit, if you're somewhere in the world, I want you to be sure that you take notes on this, because these are the kind of populist proposals that make sense and that might make sense in your community. And you can always point to Detroit and say, well, they're doing it in Detroit, so this is what we need to do here. Go ahead.
So the other proposal is Proposal R. And Proposal R asks voters if the city should create a task force on reparations.
Correct.
And
That proposal says what?
I'm looking for it right now. And the site I'm on didn't cite the actual proposal.
Well, the task force, as I understand it, will examine the issue of reparations and make some recommendations. Correct?
Correct. That's what it does.
I think, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if Mr. Curtis Smith agrees with me as an urban planner, but I think there's no question about the legitimacy of reparations. It just is, and we have a long-term legal precedent for reparations. The Japanese got reparations. Jewish people got reparations. When people are oppressed or there are crimes against civilization, the countries then have an obligation to address that through reparations. The question now becomes, I'm pretty sure that the task force is going to come up with some really good recommendations, and I hope they put African American and white American historians on this so that they can really lay out the case. Number one, for why reparations is important. I just heard a woman from the University of Michigan. She was the speaker at an event 2 Saturdays ago, when Keith Ellison, the Attorney General for the state of Minnesota, who convicted George Floyd of convicted Derek Chauvin of George Floyd's murder. That gentleman, the black Attorney General in Minnesota, he spoke at Hartford Church. It was wonderful. It was like manna from heaven. I just was so excited. As a matter of fact, I've asked him for his notes from that presentation. It was unbelievable. But before he spoke, there was a young woman from the University of Michigan. She's a full professor there, who made, if you will, the case for reparations. Super smart sister. Unbelievable. She was like, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the historical case and the legal case for reparations is very clear. And I hope they invite her down to share with our commission, if in fact we get it, and I'm pretty sure we will, the real data, to give the framework for reparations. That doesn't say what the substance of the reparations should be. And I think that's the stumbling block, because as I understand it, you tell me what you think. The substance of it is that the United States has, on the counter side against reparations, is that the United States has done all these things in order to eliminate discrimination and provided all sorts of, scholarships and everything else and business support for African American businesses, and that should constitute something like reparations. So they don't really owe each African American, all 30 million of us, something. So what do you think?
I think this is this topic has several layers, and you have articulately explained how there is legal precedence that when a segment of the population has been discriminated against or enslaved or just has not been treated fairly, that there is a precedence of providing reparations. The challenge becomes, as we look to make this a reality, is how do you determine which person is eligible? Because I think it may be tough. Is a person whose family can trace his lineage to, let's say, Mississippi, like ours can, or what about the family who has moved to the United States in 1978? Now, the family that moved to the United States in 1978 has the physical characteristics of a family who would have been enslaved 200 years
Say
earlier.
An African family.
Well, not just an African family, an African American family that has been here, and who were impacted by slavery.
Who moved here in 1978?
I could say a Jamaican family.
Or Jamaican.
Trinidadian.
Thank you.
However, what happens is they have the same physical characteristics as those who were enslaved.
Hold on. on those characteristics. Again, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Chop It Up with attorney Linda Bernard. You're watching us on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. Tune in, YouTube, Facebook, etc. Go ahead.
And so they do have the same physical characteristics. However, it may not have had a direct connection with the suffrage under slavery and Jim Crow and forced labor that happened after slavery. So it'd be interesting to see how that is formulated.
I think that's clear to me. To me, is very clear. Which is that people who are indigenous, if you will, Americans, who can show their lineage from Mississippi like you can, like I can, and most other African Americans in Detroit, migrated up from the South. I think those are the people who get reparations, because the whole point of reparations is what's happened to happen to our community through slavery since then. I mean, who were here? I mean, who've been here? I don't think it extends to people who came over in 1978.
So that just becomes in the details of how do you work this out in terms
easy
of
to me, easy peasy.
the other aspect is reparations is also sometimes the concern with it now is based on the fact that there was the Freedmen's Bureau had set aside the 40 acres and a mule, it was going to be compensation for forced labor. However, after Lincoln was assassinated, President Johnson, who was a slaveholder himself at one point, I think he was from Tennessee, but was certainly not in support of any financial resources provided to the former slaves, and in fact was supportive of the former Confederate leaders, but did away with the 40 acres and a mule that the Freedmen's Bureau had proposed to help those folks who were.
But it never became law.
It may have actually even been on.
I thought it did become law.
I thought it, but I think it may have become an executive order.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
And then when Lincoln was assassinated, his successor
got rid of it.
all.
Well, the same thing, like Biden just got rid of all Trump's executive orders, like about the border and all that. So there is executive privilege.
Mm-hmm.
So that's well established. But in terms of who is entitled, that is, the purpose of reparations would be, and it was the same with the Jewish community. Those people who could trace their lineage back to in Germany, to being people who were oppressed by the Nazi regime and so forth, were the people who got it.
Sure.
And who got their wealth. They got their wealth restored as well. It's arguable who in this country lost wealth. And I think many black people did as a result of Jim Crow and the Ku Klux Klan and all that kind of stuff, But they got their stuff back. Their paintings, anything we found, their land. All they got to do is show their deed. I had this before Hitler, and I had nothing after.
Yeah.
Or my family did, and they got it back.
And Germany, I believe, paid for it.
Yeah, Germany had to pay for it. Right. All through the Nuremberg trials and all that made it very, very clear. And then the United States. You talk about the 40 acres and a mule. The United States, in that compact that occurred after the Second World War, created Israel, took part of Palestine and part of the other neighboring countries in the Middle East, and created Israel, gave them a country, a state. So actually, based on what we're just talking about, there is some precedent for getting that 40 acres that you're talking about.
Sure.
Because we gave them a country. We created a country for Jewish people. The United States did that.
The United States, England.
Yeah, but they just went along with the program because it was our call.
It may have been back from the United Nations, but I'm just not very familiar with all.
And then we controlled the United Nations, and it was all set up. But we did that.
So there is precedent for people who have been oppressed to get compensation in response to that oppression.
But the question to me becomes, if we're talking about 40 acres and a mule, okay, your dad was one person. Maybe your dad had 4 brothers, so now there are 20 Curtises, so how do you divide it like that? The Israel thing is a little easier because well, there were a lot of Jews that were killed. They had descendants, and they just gave them a whole country. I don't know how it worked out. I got to figure that out. But I mean, because now we're talking about descendants of slaves and descendants of oppression from the South. Then the subsequent question of that becomes, should this well, I think some Chinese were enslaved, or were they? No.
Japanese were interned.
Oh, that they got paid for that.
Yeah.
We paid reparations to every Japanese family that was interned. Speaking of that, ladies and gentlemen, just give me this 1 second as an aside, because it's his area. Minoru Yamasaki, who designed the World Trade Center, he was in California at the time that he's a friend of my father's, and I knew him well. He was in his when he was in California, he was ordered to go to the camp. He went to New York instead and became a waiter in order to escape the internment camps.
Wow.
So, I mean, I'm just saying that these camps were real, and he just became a waiter up there and then became an architect and all that kind of stuff. But he didn't want to go to the camp. So he went to New York and became a dishwasher. Not a waiter, he became a dishwasher, quite frankly. He was maintenance in the kitchen. Yeah. But all those people, Japanese people, were paid. I don't know how much they were paid. I guess the commission will have to find out.
And that's what would be interesting from the commission will be to see how, to take a holistic look at reparations and not only legal precedents, historical precedents, world precedents, but I guess even how it would manifest itself and look like. And I think it'll be interesting to see what they say and come up with.
Well, I'm more interested actually in the makeup of the commission. I know some people that are like the lady from the University of Michigan I'm talking about, and I'm thinking of another guy from the University of Michigan, Errol Henderson, Professor Errol Henderson. He was the first black person. He's a professor now in Pittsburgh. First black person at U of M to get his PhD and come out summa cum laude. He's that smart. He's super, super smart. And he's from Detroit, from the Brewster Projects, and served our country in the Navy.
Yeah, I remember Earl when I was on campus from '86 to '90. Earl was a part of the Black Action Movement.
Mm-hmm. BAM.
BAM. I think it was BAM.
Black Action Movement.
BAM.
BAM.
I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was BAM too. And Earl was a proponent and a speaker and a spokesperson to talk about holding the University of Michigan accountable for some promises they had made about diversifying not only the student body, but I also believe the faculty.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even divesting from South Africa at the time.
He's written He's written about 6 books, all of which are been printed by the University Press, which tells you that they are really legitimate books and historical books. And he would be, as a Detroiter and as a person who lived, obviously, grew up in Brewster Projects and escaped to go to the Navy. He'd be an excellent person on this commission. So I can't wait to find out how this is going to work, but I'm glad you know of him, and maybe you can help me and help our community get the best and the brightest on this commission, and not just people who just want to yak, but people who really know what they're talking about and who can really make this happen and put together a framework that makes sense. What do you think?
I agree. It needs to be a panel of folks who are well versed in this topic and who have a commitment for truth, honesty, and will bring some information that I think the citizens of the city will find very helpful.
Well, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Again, you're watching Chop It Up with Attorney Linda Bernard, also Police Commissioner Linda Bernard. I am your advocate. I will always be there for you, and I'm always going to stand, as I tell everybody at the board meetings, there are 2 sides to every story. The police have their side, but the defendant has his side as well. So, thank you very much. Come and vote for me this Tuesday. If you have the ability to do that in the city of Detroit, please vote for me. And please, again, welcome, and I want to say thank you to you, Curtis, for coming in today, stopping everything that you were doing to come in and talk about this issue today. Curtis Smith, lady, if you need an urban planner, his company does that. What's the information on your company?
Well,
Quick. We only got a minute.
Okay, I don't do it anymore. I work for a nonprofit, and I develop affordable housing in rural Michigan. So I'm traveling throughout the whole state. And with the time left, Linda, I want to thank you for your service to the city, to your community. Elected officials, I think, are courageous. You put it all out there for the folks to either vote you up or down, and for that takes a lot of courage. And I want to thank you for your commitment to not just talking about the issues, but actually putting your time and efforts to solving the issues in the city of Detroit.
Thank you. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen.